everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Geek Bites, brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies.
Hey! We are back at it to do a spoiler review for The Last of Us for Season 2, Episode 5. It's in the air. We're going to break this whole thing down, this entire episode. So much happened in this with Ellie and Dina, Jessie coming in to save the day. We find out this backstory of how the Chordyceps are now airborne, which I think happens in the game. So it's going to be interesting to bring that into now the main story that we've been watching for those of us who have not played the games, to see how this progresses. And we get more with Hanrahan, which is nice. We get more with the Seraphites. We see the level of brutality the Seraphites go through with a disemboweling. And then later we see Ellie taking on Nora and Ellie going to the dark side by the end. And then we end with this beautiful moment where Ellie and Joel are in happier days. So what an incredible episode here, directed by Stephen Williams, who directed The Walking Dead, Ray Donovan, 26 episodes of Lost and episodes of Watchmen, of course, written by Craig Mazin. We're going to break it all down here in this episode here. But first, let's introduce ourselves. I am John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, virtual reality person now, and someone who got their voice back this weekend. So that was exciting.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, and I've got a spot of the Vogel flu this morning, aka had too many margaritas last night.
So you had two?
Mind your business.
I'm going to tell everybody right now, for everyone listening.
Yes.
Watching the slow decline of Shannon's alcohol tolerance from the time that we were freshmen in college to now is really, it's something to see. It's Rocha, to give Rocha credit, he's been a lightweight since the late 90s.
Yes.
Shannon, it's been a decline.
Yes, that's a fair point. Yes, I've been on those. I've been on those brewery trips with Shannon. He can put him down for sure. He can put him down. But hey, let's jump into this episode. I already gave the full description of what happens here. Michael, your overall thoughts on this episode? What do you think? Episode 5 here in season 2.
Last of Us is wild to me because every time I'm watching it, I'm like, well, okay, we had some good action. I guess this one's a little slower. This one's a character piece. And then they smacked me in the face. I got really stressed out in the back half of this episode, but I think it's really great. I love the way that they continue to your point about Chordyceps being in the air, kind of come back to pieces from the game, depart from pieces of the game, move characters around in the story. And at the end of the day, I love that this season is kind of a love story in the worst possible situation ever. Like watching Ellie and Dina come together, and the way that they do in the show, which as I've said before, I think is much, much stronger than it is in the game, is really lovely to me. I think they're doing a really great job with that, but they also do a really good job of hitting these really great character moments at exactly the right time, and then diving you back into the horrors of this world. And some of those horrors are the infected, and a lot of those horrors are not. So I think this episode moved a lot of the pieces forward, had a lot going on, gave us a really strong ending, and teed us up for what is sure to be a emotional wallop next week.
Yeah, because we're only after this episode, we're only 2 episodes away from the end of the season. So Shannon, what did you think of episode 5 here?
This is when the laying of the foundation of the characters pays off, because as Vogel already mentioned, like there are some slower episodes where we're taken in by sort of the human story. And when the action kicks up to that next level, like it did this week, we are so much more invested because we care about what happens to the people involved. And this is one of the first weeks that I have kind of thought about what it was like to have played the game. Because again, I haven't played the game. I played the first one for like a minute, and I'm like, oh, this is slow. I can't get into it. But this week, watching the way things are introduced, and again, knowing that they've made some adjustments for the series.
This ain't Call of Duty. What is this bullshit? What's the story?
Shannon either can't play a video game because it's too slow or it's too fast and he gets motion sick. He's like the Goldilocks of video gaming. It just has to be just right.
I need Uncharted. It's got to be just right. But that was kind of the thing, is like looking at the way that the Scars are portrayed in this episode, the way that the Stalkers are portrayed. I was telling my wife, I was like, because I watched the episode last night and I watched it again this morning. She was like, "You're watching it again?" I'm like, "Yeah, this one's scary." Because when you look at the undead from like The Walking Dead, are there frightening moments of The Walking Dead? Yeah, not to this extent. And I think part of that is the way that the infected are portrayed, and also just what the infected are, and that this is a biological disease. Like this is from Mother Nature. Like this is, that's frightening. And just, we'll get into more specifics, but yeah, big fan of what happened in this episode.
Yeah, agreed. And as Lauren Cohen said, we got to get to Manhattan. This is a fascinating episode for me because, as Michael pointed out so well, the relationship with Ellie and Dina. This is an interesting relationship. And you see Dina as like, yeah, we're in this relationship. And when Ellie's coming up to try to help, Dina's irritated by it, like you would be in a relationship, right? Like, you can't do this thing. Let me do this thing. Stop bothering me. And Ellie's like, I want to help. I want to be a part of this. It's like, no. So she goes and plays the guitar. And we have that moment where she realizes, she can't play too much because it makes her think of Joel. So she's not ready to confront. She's not going to break down. She's not that built that way, But I love how this episode challenges you. Yes, it's great that, they confront the walkers. They might be killed here by the more advanced infected people. And then you get the situation with Jessie saving them. But I see by the end of the episode, this is really a questioning of the audience. How far are you willing to go with Ellie's desire for revenge? And how uncomfortable are you? And even when Nora says all these things to make you upset, the fact that she is willing to pull out a pipe and beat her as she's dying from this infection to get information, it's a question. As we've just seen the Scars disemboweling a man, as we've just seen what the wolves are capable of doing, you're like, where am I in all of this? And I love that as a challenge for the viewer,
I kept thinking at the end of the episode, and we'll get to it more, but watching what Ellie does with a pipe that is clearly shaped like a golf club.
Oh, yeah, great point.
All I could think of was Shannon in our review of the second episode, where he was like, what Joel did at the end of season 1 was justified. But what Abby did, that's sociopathic behavior. That's revenge. That's not helping anybody. And I was watching the end of this episode and I was like, okay, Shannon, so what's happening here? Is this justified, or is Ellie a sociopath? Where do you fall on this?
Maybe we get to it.
Yeah, let's not jump the gun. That's right. All right. So anyway, we start out with Hanrahan. Now let's. This is interesting. We get more with Hanrahan here, who is interrogating Elise about what her team clearing out the lower basement of the hospital. We hear about a mysterious Leon who was left to die by her after he told her to seal them off because the Chordyceps virus had gone airborne. And at the end of the scene, it's revealed that Leon is her son. And this is interesting because she did what Joel couldn't do. She sacrificed her own flesh and blood to save the people here. And of course, this guy, as we see later on in the show, is in a living death, which is horrific. So, Michael, let's just stop here. We'll get to obviously the meat of the episodes in a little bit, but I want to start with this beginning. What did you think of this beginning as a way to kind of push back on what Joel did? As I said, the show is asking you a lot of questions as a viewer. Where do you land on this stuff?
Well, yeah, you nailed it. I mean, you nailed exactly what they're doing here. And you can either go with the George Lucas quote of, it's all poetry, it rhymes. Like, they are riffing. Last of Us is riffing on a theme here.
Yeah.
You got Abby and her dad. You got Joel and his surrogate daughter. You got Joel and his real daughter. Now you've got her and her son down in the basement. You got Dina talking about what happened with her parents. Like, there's a theme. It's not hard to see. But yeah, that she sacrificed her son. It was hard for her. But she did it for the greater good. And so the other thing you can really do here is they're riffing on the classic Kirk and Spock debate, the good of the many and the good of the one. I mean, that is what Last of Us is. Like, what Ellie wanted to do was for the good of the many and was clearly okay sacrificing herself. And Joel chose the good of the one. And that is what Last of Us at its core is really focusing on. So adding this new character, because the other part of it, and the other part that's interesting about the scene, and you sort of touched on this at the beginning, is they are re-retconning, de-retconning. Like, I don't know. In Last of Us,
right,
Cordyceps is not, you don't get it from a bite. You get it from the air.
Right.
Like that's how it happens
in the game.
And in the game, sorry, in the game, in Last of Us, the game, that's how it happens. And one of the reasons I think that they decided to go away from that is you spend a lot of time in the game wearing a gas mask. And when you cast someone like Pedro Pascal, unless you're Star Wars, you don't want to put him in a mask. You want to see Pedro Pascal's face. So I think that there's a lot of reasons that they chose to go with the biting. I think it's more dynamic. I think it's scarier. I think people get that in a zombie show. But now they've sort of woven back around and said, well, now we're going to add this as a new element, which is a really interesting thing. And so using this opening scene to establish that they've sort of gone back to some of the Airborne stuff from the game, to sort of touch on this, I made a sacrifice that someone like Joel clearly would not have made. And it also just sets up the expectation. Like, had they not had this scene at the beginning, then when Nora and Ellie go down there at the end, we wouldn't have known right away what was at stake. Whereas now, by having this scene at the beginning, the second that Nora runs down that hall, you're like, fuck. So it reintroduces a game element, it touches on the core themes of the show, and it sets up an expectation so that we know what's happening. So it ratchets the tension for the last 15, 20 minutes of the show. So great scene, really well written, really touching. And as you said, ALANNA UBACH is amazing.
Yeah, right. It's so good as Hanrahan. What about you, Shannon? What do you think of this opening scene here? And Heltian Park is who plays Elise, who's being questioned there about her son Leon.
Yeah, I mean, one question for our resident game player. Yeah. Anytime in the game that you're around the infected, you have to put on a gas mask, or is that something that automatically occurs?
It's when you're in areas where it's usually in like darker areas, or like areas where you go into an area where Chordyceps is everywhere, but not like every time an infected runs at you, but like areas where it's like, you go down. It's areas where it would grow and ferment and whatever.
But is that something that automatically happens in the game, or do you as the player have to physically hit triangle to put your gas mask on?
It's a really good question that I don't remember from when I played the game. Shannon, that's a really good question. Shannon, that's a good question. Somebody answer that in the comments.
Well, to the scene, again, the two performers, ALANNA UBACH and what was the park's name?
Heltian Park.
Heltian Park. Both outstanding. I mean, and this is the type of scene that you're kind of baiting the hook for the audience, that you have this very stoic character come in and basically be, we are on the cusp of fighting a war. We need everyone that we can have, and you just killed a bunch. And the slow, methodical nature that she sort of unravels this story, that she unfurls this narrative. Looking at, again, watching it again, it really hits, knowing where she gets to, that this was her son that she basically sacrificed. Just incredible work by the both of them, because the way that she's taking a drag off that cigarette, the semi-shock state that she's in, it really kind of reminded me like Tom Hanks at the end of Captain Phillips. I mean, this is someone who is able to basically tell you everything that happened in a surprising amount of detail, but there is a 1,000-yard stare quality to her face, that she has not dealt with the emotional ramifications of this. So she is just spitting out facts. So again, very, very well done scene. And I will push back on Mike a little bit, thinking that where Joel was in the game was something he could immediately do something, whereas Park was on a radio several floors, was not in the immediate vicinity. So had she been closer, had she been with Leon and the team, would she have gotten her son out? Who's to say? But also adding this element that, again, I didn't know from the games, that you've added a layer of danger for the characters, that when you get into these isolated, concentrated areas of Chordyceps, that produces a whole new challenge that our ensemble hasn't dealt with before. And it adds an extra layer of danger to the storytelling, which is very dynamic for us as an audience.
Yeah, there's a lot of it, right? As Ellie and Dina get closer, it adds more danger because there's ability to lose. Both of them may lose each other. That you add these infected that can now stalk you, the stalkers, and now you put stuff in the air. So the danger of this entire world has increased exponentially as each episode's going along. And don't forget in this scene how Elise mentions Isaac and says, "Yeah, because Isaac's not coming in. I know I'm not getting killed." Like that lets you know that Isaac is the last guy you see if you're a wolf when you've gotten in trouble or you've done something wrong before you die. And that's really an unsettling reaffirmation of the position he has with the wolves. But speaking of Ellie and Dina, let's move on to there. Back in the theater, it's day 2 in Seattle. As I said, Dina is triangulating this away to the hospital and avoiding the wolves and listening to the walkie-talkies. Hears that Nora, one of Abby's group, is in the hospital. Ellie tries to help, as I said, and irritates her. So she goes down and play the guitar. Can't play it too much without thinking of Joel. Dina figures out that they have to move through a long, unpatrolled building. They deduce that the Seraphites don't believe in technology when they come upon this picture of the prophet, and then all these dead Seraphites under this worship this bitch or something like that, or feel this bitch is what I'm saying. And after Ellie expresses concerns for Dina and offers to bring her back to Jackson because she's pregnant, Dina delivers a hell of a speech here, talking about what she experienced, what she went through, and the fact that she will stay with Ellie because if someone had done to her family what had been done to Joel, she would hunt them down to the end of time. So in a way, Dina reaffirming Ellie's journey that she's on here, even though Dina constantly throws up when she sees violence or the repercussions of violence here. And then they end up in this building and have to deal with the stalkers and who shows up to save them. But Jessie coming through in the clutch and getting them out of there. So before we get into the forest and all of that, what are your thoughts here on this with Ellie and Dina here, Shannon, the progression of their relationship, and then what they experience with the stalkers, and then Jessie saving them before they go into the forest?
So, you know, we all knew from season 1 and from Game of Thrones that Bella Ramsey is just an incredible, incredible performer. I'm still a little new to the work of Isabela Merced. I was not a Dora the Explorer, the movie audience member.
How dare you? How dare you?
Apologies. But having seen her in Madam Web, and that wasn't a great showcase for anyone, really getting to see her in this, knowing that she's going to be a part of the DC universe going forward as Hawkgirl. What a talented young woman. I mean, she's just outstanding, and watching the very natural back and forth between Bella Ramsey and Isabela Merced, talking about the fact that Ellie, oh, I brought a protractor, and you see that moment of hesitation, like, you fucking with me? And it's like, yeah, I didn't bring a protractor. I don't know what that does. I'm not good at this. The moment where she goes into that theater, like, there is something, and I think this is probably growing up as a theater kid, like the three of us were, there is something kind of beautiful about an empty stage, an empty auditorium. There is something that just kind of connects with us emotionally. And as you see her grab the guitar, sit on the stool for a moment, and not able to continue. I mean, it's, again, the touch points of Joel throughout the episode. That, you know, this is the first of the 3 big ones that we get. Yeah, that speech that she delivers about when she was 8, and this is the first person she had to kill, and knowing her state, like, yes, I am pregnant. Yes, this is a reckless situation we are going into. There's no right answer for me. If you want to go, I'll go. If you want to go home, we'll go home. And her commitment, not just to Ellie as this person that she has romantic feelings for, but also the commitment to this cause, that no matter what Joel did, what happened to him was not right. And I mean, that kind of tease up a larger argument that we'll get into later of, it's this sort of endless cycle of vengeance. Like, when does it stop? The whole moment where they get inside the warehouse and we get to see the stalkers. This is one of the moments I thought about the game, because for the series, we're introduced in the first season to the clickers, and there is sort of an unsettling feeling when you hear. I mean, it is kind of like, that really unsettles me. I don't know how you make this worse. Well, you make these sort of nonverbal groans, or not nonverbal, but just this. I mean, you hear like the way that the cordyceps is using the person's brain, and how they're able to make these sounds, these sort of unhumanly sounds. Like it is the most frightening thing. And Ellie's plan going off the rails right away is like, hey, we're going to flank. I'm going to get in. Whoever gets in front, the other person will take him from the back. And they turn around, you see, oh, no, there's 2. Nope, there's 3. Nope, there's 4. Nope, there's 5. And you see how not only they've advanced with their communication skills, but it almost seems like they've advanced in the way that they move when Dina is inside that cage. And I mean, kudos to the infected performers, like these acrobats that they have. You see the way that they move. It's so frightening and so, again, just not human. And the moment where Ellie is saved, and for half a second, I mean, we know Joel's dead. Like this is not the world where someone comes back to life. But you see the moment where you see this silhouette and this hand. And it's full on, Michael Biehn from Terminator. It's, come with me if you want to live. And then you see it's Jessie. And it's like, oh, this is the guy who just got done wrong by Dina. The two of them defied Jackson's orders and decided to go. And also, this is the girl that he had restarted a romantic relationship with, maybe. So yeah, the whole sequence was just incredibly, incredibly well done. And what it leads to, which again, as someone who hasn't played the game but can now start picturing how the game goes, outstanding work.
Yeah, Michael, what are your thoughts on the relationship and the way it's laid out here and the furtherance of it, and then what we get here with the Stalkers, and then Jessie coming in to save Jessie of all people coming in to save Ellie and Dina?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think something that I notice a lot, and I think I can say this as the resident homosexual on the Geek Buddies, is there's a big difference between a gay love story and a love story that happens to be gay.
Okay.
And a lot of times when you have a gay love story where it's like, it's just all about the fact that we are finding love and we're coming out of the closet and people don't accept us, and like, those are important stories, particularly at a point in time when we didn't ever have representation. It's really important to have those stories. But what's happening here is great, because this is just a love story between two very different people, and they happen to be queer.
Right.
It's a tough distinction to sort of map out, and you sort of feel it out as you're watching it. But like, as someone who both is queer and loves queer stories and also writes stories where you're trying to like map that out, it's like, it's a very subtle difference. And I think they're doing a really good job of this story not feeling like, it's not Ellie. I say this in a way that even though these stories are great, it's not Ellie and Dina running around waving a pride flag. It's Ellie and Dina living a very real, very difficult situation and having very different personalities and finding love and working it out. And I think, to me, that makes it a little bit more universal and relatable to everyone. And I think they just deserve a lot of credit for that, because I think this, as I keep saying, I think the love story here is really, they've moved a couple things around and made it just much stronger. And I do love, as Shannon was saying, like, I love that Dina's capable.
Yes.
Dina, as we talked about last week, Dina's who you want if you're going on a trip. Ellie, until later, and that becomes important. But, the fact that Dina's the one that's doing the triangulation, that Dina's the one that kind of figures out, here's how we need to do this. I've been listening to the thing. I've been figuring it out. Like, Dina is eminently capable throughout all of this. And that the fact that they joke about it, and this is not a bone of contention. This is not Ellie being like, I don't like that you think I'm stupid.
Right.
Like, they're like, she's like, look, can we just both be honest? We both know I'm smarter. And Ellie's like, yeah, okay, that's true. So I thought that was all really well done. And then you get to this big speech that Dina has, and everything that Shannon says about Isabela Merced, 100% agree. Like, I can't be more impressed with her each week. And then we get to the next week and I'm more impressed with her. But this speech, and moving this speech to here in the story, is really important, because this is what makes Ellie not an asshole, a selfish asshole. Like, there's this vibe that, like, okay, you really love this person and they're on this road with you and they're carrying a baby that ostensibly they said they want to raise with you. And if you continue to drag them on your revenge quest, at what point are we like, kind of fuck you, Ellie? But the fact that we have this moment where Ellie's like, wait, we shouldn't do this. you should go I'm putting this in your hands because you do have this baby. And if you want to go back, we're going to go back. And then Dina steps up and then reveals this story, which I think gets revealed a little earlier in the game about her backstory, and then ties it into the bigger thematic elements of like, it doesn't matter what happened before this. It doesn't matter what Joel did. Like, we're doing this. And so it kind of puts them on equal playing field, and that Dina had them, like Ellie gave Dina the option. And Dina said, no, we're ride or die. We're ride or die in this. And I think that is a bit like, it's really important from a character standpoint, because I really do believe if you didn't have that, at a certain point, Ellie becomes less likable.
Right.
And I think by doing that, it keeps everything exactly where you want it. And to push back a little bit on Shannon's pushback, Shannon is right. At the beginning of the episode, that woman could not get to her son. So it's not a one-to-one, but when you have someone who had to shut their son in to protect everybody else, and then Dina tells a story about what happened to her parents or what happened to her family and what she would do, it's not that everything has to be a one-to-one, but thematically, you have a lot of people choosing to sacrifice family members, get revenge for family members, protect family members over other people. And you look at that as a through line throughout, even if it isn't exact, to Shannon's point. But then I think what happens next is really interesting.
Debate at the end of the episode. Now, go ahead.
but what happens next, as they get into the shit, is really interesting, because this is where Ellie actually is stronger than Dina.
Yes.
Not stronger is the wrong word, but in a pinch, because Ellie was basically raised by Joel, Dina, on a planning standpoint, she is who you want.
Right.
When the shit hits the fan, Ellie's a little bit of a psychopath. And Ellie is better. So starting at the moment where Dina's like, I'm going to go look through the door. And Ellie's like, yeah, because you're the one who can't get infected. Great idea, bitch. And like Ellie kind of steps forward in this point. And when you get into the moment, and Shannon's 100% right, I was like, these things are horrifying.
Yeah. And
they do an amazing job. It's great the way they do it, because you've got the one, which we saw what it was in that first episode. I'm like, okay, that's one is rough. And they kind of go through a whole, okay, it's smarter, but here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And then they look up and you see two. And you're like, oh, fuck, there's two of them. Now it's equal. What are you going to do? And then you see another one. And then like, it's just, the reveal gets worse and worse and worse. And you realize they're not getting out of this. Like, they do a good job of like, you're in this moment and you're like, there's no way out. And in that moment, Ellie takes charge and gets Dina to safety. She's like, you go there, I'm going to deal with this. And Ellie's doing her thing. But even at that point, like, although Ellie can't get infected, Ellie can for sure get ripped apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do get into this moment where you're watching what's happening. You're waiting, like, how are they going to get, I know they're not going to die, but like, I have zero idea how they're going to get out. And then Jessie shows up, and Shannon's right. For just a moment, it's less that we know that it's Joel, because we do know that Joel's dead, but Ellie for sure in that moment is like, Joel's saving me. Like, this is a Joel is saving me moment. And then that it's Jessie is wild. So it's just, everything about this is like ratchets up the tension, super scary moment. The Stalkers are just horrifying, but really seeing how all of this is reflected in kind of the relationship dynamics of Dina and Ellie, and when one steps up and when the other steps up, and how they balance each other out. And then introducing Jessie into the equation really kind of adds a new wrinkle that kind of, you start to get into in the next scene. But I just think that with everything being so ratcheted up with the action and scary and feeling like the video game, the relationship, I think, between the two of them is what really ties all of this together.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. It's some excellent points you're making here. How it makes you as the viewer, as I said earlier, it challenges you as the viewer. You want to think one way about Ellie, but Dina and her responses, Dina's love for Ellie, Dina's appreciation for Ellie, like that rounds her out a little bit more. It's like Joel. Joel came off at the beginning of last season like abrasive, defensive, aloof, distant from Ellie, and eventually Ellie wore her down. Ellie kind of humanized Joel for us, and then the same thing is happening here with Dina and Ellie. And let me tell you something. Lady Outlaw does not watch The Last of Us. It's way too scary for her. But she did walk in while I was watching it during Dina's speech, and she looked at me and she goes, "You Latinos." And I was like, "Yeah, exactly right. That's how we feel about things. It doesn't matter who started it. It's whoever did it last. That's who we're going for." So she was like, "I think I understand you even more now watching that speech." And it's right. When Dina rolled that speech, I was like, "Damn right." I literally said "damn right" after she was done, because that's just, but again, that's the show challenging you, because some people watch that speech and go, that's terrible. Why did they do that? So I like that. It allows all these points of views to exist because in reality they would. So it's up to you as the viewer to see where you land on all of this. And Mike, you bring up a great point, the through line, what you sacrifice. Do you sacrifice for the greater good? The needs of the many over the needs of the few, those kinds of things. And I like that the challenge is constantly going with different characters because they'd all be in these situations. I also think what you brought up about the relationship, they just happen to be queer. It's about their relationship. I also think the gender identity thing is being slid in there very subtly. Like last episode, she said, I'm going to be a dad. And in this episode, she does what is a stereotypical male thing we've seen in life and in movies and whatever. She's like, I want to protect my pregnant wife from danger and I want to take her back. So I like that that's all subtle. It's not being overtly, look, it's just there. And I
and also to your point about that, because I've seen people making fun of it online and some people are like, oh, Bella Ramsey, she shouldn't have been Ellie, like all the idiots, whatever. But if they were doing that and it was just subtle because they wanted to do it, it'd be great. But I think what makes it stronger here is there's actually a really strong reason why this character leans this way. Not just her identity or how she sees herself, but Ellie is Joel.
Right. Yes. She's becoming Joel.
Like Ellie's role model, who Ellie models herself after, is Joel. And again, when you get into the themes of parents and children and family and loved ones, the fact that Ellie is stepping into this role with Dina, where she's like, I'm going to be a dad, I'm going to have this kid. It makes things between her and Jessie interesting, which we'll get to in a minute. But it also goes, Ellie will grow up to be a Joel.
Well, and as Gail said, she was already walking down that path before Joel.
They were walking together. Yeah.
Yep. Joel just helped reaffirm what she was doing. And Ellie is kind of doing that by delivering the speech like that. She's removing the guilt that that might come up for Ellie when she confronts Abby, which we don't know how that's going to go. Yeah, I love the star. You guys are right. It reminded me a lot of Independence Day, which I just recently watched a couple of weeks ago for the first time in like a long time. The way they curl their tentacles around Brent Spiner and have him say the things that he's saying to the president, very similar to how they're using the vocal cords of these humans to make these unsettling noises to add to the more unsettling nature of their imminent deaths. Other than Ellie and Dina, who of course escaped thanks to Jessie. And I love throwing Jessie in the mix here. It's a great situation to have this triangle of love between the three people here and how that's all going to go down. Michael getting what he wants, a throuple in this show. So we will see how that all plays out. So yeah, exactly.
My ideal throuple looks a little bit different than this throuple, but I take your meaning.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we get Jessie coming in here. They escape from the wolves who find them. They run into the forest. Wolves say they're not going into the forest. And why is that? It's because that is the domain of the Seraphites. And we see them disembowel this poor wolf who is willing to like surrender state's evidence, give them all information. It doesn't matter. This bearded dude frees him by disemboweling, which is insane. And we get a focus on this young lady. I have a feeling that she might actually be a character coming up in the show big time at some point. Dina gets shot in the leg, and Ellie has Jessie take her out of there. And then Ellie sneaks into the wolf's compound, confronts Nora, has him back and forth with her about the Joel situation. We initially think that Nora is on her side and sympathizes with her and is trying to maybe express a sadness about what happened to Joel, but no, she's using it to lure her in. Says that he deserves everything he got. Says he calls him a little bitch, which is insane. Ellie chases her down the elevator shaft, and there Ellie confronts what is left of Leon there, and we see the cordyceps, we see the stuff in the air, and then eventually she finds Nora, confronts her there, and beats her with a pipe to get the information. And the biggest reveal is that when Nora tries to tell her, Ellie, what Joel did, Ellie goes, oh, I know. Which is a hell of a thing. And we end with this beautiful moment with Ellie having the memory of Joel coming in as she's waking up in happier times. So, Michael, let's get to it. What'd you think of the situation with the Seraphites? What'd you think of what happened with the wolves and Nora? And then that ending moment here in this episode.
Well, just staying on the relationship track for a minute, the Jessie, Ellie, Dina dynamic is fascinating because this is another reason, again, kind of thematically, why Ellie sort of takes that, I'm going to be a dad, I'm this, like, she is the Joel. Even though Dina's way more capable and smarter as far as like the tracking and this, like, Ellie's who you want in the pinch, and she was protecting Dina in that moment, was like, I'm going to do what I need to do. She did exactly what Joel would have done for her. Like, you go hide there. I'm
Yeah.
going to deal with this, even if I'm going to die doing it. And then she can't save her. Like, they were fucked. And then Jessie comes in and saves her. And so you're like, I got the ex-boyfriend, the current partner, but she's pregnant with your baby, and you two respect each other and we're friends, but you now have this girl between you. And it's just like, in a very, very short scene, the dynamic between the three of them, and the fact that Jessie was worried about them, came all this way with Tommy to help them, but also is super pissed at them, probably mostly Ellie. Like, in the middle of this, like, super, super tense get away from the infected scene that goes right into this other scene, they just jam-packed this whole, like, oh, this is rich territory. There is a bunch you could do here. Like, and the fact that they didn't, you know, for a show that does love to slow things down, there's a world where you could have, like, had them get away, hide out somewhere, do some character work, have some things, then be like, let's move on. But, like, at this point, you're just like, boom, 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 boom.
And
I
like, you get that exchange where she says, we were doing fine. And he's like, oh,
until, and she's like, until we were not.
Yeah.
So you get really, like, it's just in a very, very specific amount of time. And then in addition to all of that, this is like the definition of out of the frying pan into the fryer. Like, they get out of this horrible, horrible situation and jump right into another situation that arguably might be more horrifying. It's so upsetting. You know, they end up in this situation and you watch this disemboweling moment, which I think really evens the scales from what we saw Isaac do last week.
Oh yeah, no.
Like, last week we saw this horrific scene where he's, like, torturing the Seraphite and you're like, oh, WLF is pretty fucked up. But then you watch this scene and you're like, well, I guess everyone. And again, what's happening here between the Seraphites and the WLF on a macro scale is exactly what Dina talks about, what Abby's dealing with, what Ellie's dealing with. Like, well, they did this to us, so we're going to do this to them, but then we're going to do this to them, so that we're going to, like, it just goes back and forth and it's never ending. It's like both sides here are just completely awful at this point. And because when you just keep doing the revenge bit, as much as Johnny's like, that's what I'm going to do, when you keep doing that, you dehumanize everyone to the point where everyone's dehumanized. Like there's no winner here. And that's kind of what we're watching play out. But because this is also a really fun action show, it turns into, like, a horrific chase scene. Like, the whistling, the arrow in Dina's leg, like, the whole thing that gets Ellie set apart from them and sends her into the hospital for this whole scene. And I do think that at a certain point, one of the reasons they made the choice to bring the airborne Chordyceps back in is because, as opposed to the Dina thing, where in the game, sorry, not the comics, in the game, Ellie gets her mask gets cracked and Dina's like, oh, fuck, you're infected. And she's like, no, I'm not. See, happened super fast. They let that play out in a very different way with the bite and Dina staying up all night. But for this, you really need that immediate moment. You need Nora to realize almost immediately that Ellie is the one. So I think they sort of worked backwards with, we need this moment to work the way it's going to work. So maybe that's why we're going to bring the airborne virus back in at this point. But yeah, the chase is great, you know, and you do get, and this is where I was thinking of Shannon. I mean, you get this amazing chase scene and Ellie gets down there. The airborne Chordyceps is horrifying. The fact that these people are in living death, and you see one of the people is wearing scrubs, not WLF outfits, which means they've been in that living death for, like, years.
Yeah, decades.
And the way that the Chordyceps is using their lungs to, like, spray the stuff out, like, it's just, like, it's gross on every level. But yeah, then you get this final scene. And like I said, it's a pipe that looks like a golf club. It's Ellie coming in here, and it's Ellie doing exactly what Abby did to Joel. I mean, you know, there's no way around what they're trying to get at here. And yeah, and then Nora kind of gives her the whole information, and this is everything that we have been wondering all season. Does Ellie know that? What does Ellie know? What really happened between her and Joel? Why was she so pissed at him? And we thought maybe it was because he's never admitted this thing. So when she says, I know, again, it changes everything. Because, like, this isn't the moment where you find this all out and she realizes and she goes, oh, Joel did kill these people. I guess maybe I understand why they were like, no, I don't care. It's back to what Dina said. It's like, I don't care what Joel did. You killed my dad.
Yeah.
It's Iron Man and Bucky. It's like I don't care. He killed my mom, man. Like there's just a moment where you're like, I don't give a shit, and that's what happens. And then you have this super intense, very, very violent moment, and to have that immediately cut to this beautiful, beautiful flashback moment. And like, look, Daddy Pedro is Daddy Pedro for a reason. And I'm gonna tell you, like, I know Joel is dead. Yeah. I said last week, I assumed we were going to get an episode that was a full flashback. So this moment was not a surprise to me, but the emotional impact that hit me when handsome ass Pedro Joel walked through that door and said, "Hey kiddo," it was like, oh man, I'd kill anybody for doing anything to that man too. So that was great. And that combined with the next week, sort of what's to come next week. Yeah, like I think we are getting, as opposed to the Game of Thrones second to last episode is the penultimate action hits the fan. I think we are all going to be next Monday talking about how we wept through Sunday night's Last of Us.
That's a great point. Yeah. Shannon, your thoughts on what happened here as we go into the forest with the Seraphites, and then how Ellie confronts Nora, and then that final moment?
So this is another one of the things that I would be curious how the scars are introduced in the game, because from a game player standpoint, like you have this really intense enclosed action scene with this enemy who has leveled up. That's super scary and super frightening with all, I mean, that's such fantastic gameplay. And then as you are being pursued by some bad guys, and you see the bad guys stop. I mean, like the crazy thing, the crazy place that video games have gotten to is, and you kids don't know what it was like playing Nintendo 64.
Okay, Grandpa. Okay, Grandpa.
Like you reach a certain point in a level and it cues kind of like the next scene. So you're able to kind of witness something happening, like, and you're getting like relevant information. So as the trio are going up, and like, again, I can see the way it would be in the game. I don't know if this is how it is presented in the game, but you can see sort of this, the fading voices of the wolves saying we can't go in there, and the presumption is there's more infected. But then you see sort of this flicker of fire, and as you get closer, you see this gathering with a guy in a noose and someone with a sickle. Like the leveling up in fear is so palpable. And like, again, I'm wondering if this is when the scars would actually be introduced in the game versus, the scene that we got where they're all kind of mowed down. So it is so scary to see, like, you get the Chordyceps infected thing. Like this is an organism that is trying to spread. Like a tree that isn't tended to. Like it will just keep growing and growing and growing until it is naturally taken down. These people are doing this by choice, which makes them infinitely more frightening. And the pursuit after Dina is shot in the leg, you hear these whistles in the woods, you hear the arrows whizzing by your head. I mean, again, it's just really, really exciting. And seeing how Jessie has no problem being like, yeah, Ellie, you go that way. I'm going to take Dina this way. I mean, again, he's trying to save as many, the goods of the many, and the many in that case is 2 versus 1.
Well, he doesn't know that part yet.
Yeah, he doesn't know she's pregnant yet, but yes.
Well, no, I'm saying himself.
Yeah,
himself
and
point. Dina.
2 people. Yeah.
2 versus 1. But then as we get into the hospital and we see Nora, this is where I will soften my stance on what happened at the beginning of the season. So you go through the whole chase, and again, Nora calls Joel, like she lures Ellie in. She calls Joel a little bit because she thinks she's going to be saved. Right. She thinks that, like, I'm going to be able to get away from this little girl and I'm going to be okay. You don't throw down a statement like that when someone is armed and you're not, unless you are 99.9% positive someone has your back. And because she was not expecting that barricade in the hall, her plan gets kind of turned upside down. So watching them get down into where the Chordyceps has really flourished in the basement. Again, I can just see the video game version of this as Ellie's kind of, you're going around with your flashlight. You're seeing these people who have just been slowly taken over, have been like harvested almost to help the Chordyceps grow. And then you see Nora, who's there in the corner. Now, you can make an argument that had Nora told Ellie where Abby was, maybe she would have let her go. Probably not, but maybe she would have. In this instance, we know Ellie is not going to let her go because you didn't give me what I needed, and you just slagged off my dad, who you were a part in murdering. So as she's coming up with that pipe and says, "Where's Abby?" that first hit as an audience being on Ellie's side, if you are on Ellie's side, that first hit, it feels righteous. It feels like, yeah, that's right. That's what you get. The second hit, that's when it starts to get a little like, now I'm a little conflicted in how I feel. But going from this torture scene, which is what she's doing the same thing that the quartet did before with Joel, except there was no end goal other than killing him. Like, she does need the information of where is Abby. But then to counterbalance that with this final moment of Joel coming in, and it's almost like, you know what, Dad, I'm on the path to bring justice to you. 1 down, 3 to go. So it is a really interesting dynamic. But again, the first hit, I was like, yeah, got her. The second hit is where it was like, ooh, okay, now this is getting a little morally conflicted.
Yeah.
No, but I think like Shannon's reaction, as much as I like to tease Shannon, is what they want you to do. I mean, this is the point of The Last of Us, and it is because humanity at its core is tribal. We will always do what we do for the people that we love, and if somebody from outside of our group does it to somebody that we love, they become the enemy. And so what they do with Last of Us is season 1 is you're with Joel and Ellie. So when Joel does what he does, even though it is very wrong on many levels, we're like, yeah, you protect Ellie. Yeah, you get her out of there. And then when we see Abby at the beginning of the season, we're like, how could you do this? Joel is part of our tribe. This is my Joel. Like, you're evil. You did this bad. But then you get to hear, and Ellie does it, and we're like, oh, well, Ellie's my tribe. But now, I see what you did. I see what you did. And like forcing us to sort of confront these very, very human emotional reactions to things is what I think elevates this from, it's a fun zombie show.
Right. Yeah. Just like I said at the beginning, I love that it challenges the viewer to see where you land when all of these situations go down. I think you guys covered a lot of what's going on here and the feelings about it, analysis. Totally. So excellent points. But my thing I would add, though, is I also think the show's making a little bit of a commentary beyond just the tribal thing, which, of course, surface, you can catch it, Hatfields, McCoys, whatever you want to say. But I also think it's a commentary about running things through a religious point of view or a cult point of view, running things through a military point of view. Both are equally brutal. Both are born out of fear, and both can lead to violence and a worshiping of violence and an excusing of violence. And then we see Ellie do almost in her own way, her micro universe way of doing things, do the exact same thing. I don't think she was ever going to let, and you make an excellent point here, Shannon. I don't think she was ever going to let Nora go the second Nora called Joel a little bitch. And you're right. She thought she'd get away. She had the people shooting at Ellie. She almost got away. They go down there. But here's where Ellie is a challenge because she sees the airborne. She knows she's immune. She hears Nora coughing, which is the sign to go and find her, finds her, and then lets her breathe that stuff in. Nora tries to combat, use the reason. Ellie knows that and the audience the show fools us, but having, as Nora reveals things, you see Ellie drop the gun and you think, oh, she's going to be like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay, I have something to think about. She puts it in the holster, grabs the pipe. She knows that Nora is already going to die. She knows that Nora is already infected. There's no going back. And so instead of just letting her be there and just die infected, which I thought she was going to do, which is the ultimate cruelty, she is going to beat her to get the information, then let her die as an infected person. So it's an even harder leveling up than we've seen before from her in terms of the death, but she wants to get the answers. And I wonder how much of herself Ellie is going to lose before she finally confronts Abby and what that's going to lead to when she sees everything she's done just to exact this revenge, which as more people die will get pettier and pettier as she gets to that final moment. So it's going to be interesting when they lead what happens there. And yes, ending on that moment between them teases for us the fact that the relationship was good. And of course, as we see in the preview for next episode, we're going to see when he reveals what happened or she figures out what happened, which was behind her I know, which is going to be really strong.
I mean, really quick to your point about the religious group, the military group. What's interesting, and I mean, again, I think an interesting conversation point is when you throw Jackson, Wyoming into the mix as well. Yeah, because you have a very, like, all of these things are versions of tribes. Religious groups are a tribe. Being a part of a military construct is a tribe. Having a town that your community. But like, compare the WLF to the Seraphites to Jackson, and where would you rather live?
Right.
Where would you rather be? You know what I mean? Like,
Jackson is the middle. And I think that's what it's saying, that Jackson Hole is the place that is where we need to get to, which is community, caring for each other, protecting our community, but not overtly starting wars, overtly committing violence. And we have a council where if you want to go and enact revenge, we will talk about it, we will discuss it, and then we will decide if you should or you shouldn't and how it's going to cost us. So yeah, I think the show is making a strong commentary that Jackson Hole is what we need to be, not WLF, which is an offshoot of Fedra. Becomes
well, WLF started for good reasons.
Well, that's what I'm saying. All these things usually do.
And really, the Seraphites, when we first meet them, are just like a weird little Amish cult that is like both the WLF, like what we see with Isaac at the very beginning. The WLF was Fedra is abusing people. Fedra is fascist. We are going to fight against them. And the Seraphites are like, we're just trying to survive in this crazy world, and we don't want no electronics. And they're kind of like fine, but then when we catch up to them so many years later, we're like, oh shit. So yeah, like you're 100% right.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see as we go into the final episode. All right. Any final words on this one, Shannon? I'll go first. Any final words?
Nah, man, this is a fun show to review. I mean, again, having not played the game, it's always fun to have surprises.
Yeah, agreed. What about you, Michael? Any final words as we wrap up here?
Next week is going to break us. I'll tell you right now. Putting my money on. Wow, that was rough.
I think I agree. All right, well, that's our review here for season 2, episode 5 of The Last of Us. It's in the air. Thank you so much for watching and listening to us. If you're listening to us on the podcast, Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is @The Rocha Says.
Mikey.
Smash that like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the content he's got there. Leave your comments below. What did you think of this episode? What do you think of this season? What do you think is going to happen in the next 2 episodes of Last of Us Season 2? Let us know. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments. They'll go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, just a couple of plugs. I had my F1 trailer reaction that is out now for you all to watch for the new main trailer that dropped today and later on. I will be seeing the new Mission Impossible movie, and if they allow me to do an out of the theater reaction movie, I will put that up later on tonight, so look for that as well. So, but thank you so much for watching this review, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the Geek Bite, brought to you by the
Geek Buddies.